Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamsya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyatya Deshatarine He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So welcome to our Tuesday and Thursday series on the Vaishnav Ninda. We had 2 sessions up till now and we had quite short discussions. The first session itself, we had the introduction where we discussed from the Chaitanya Charitamrita about the Bhakti Lata Beej and how we get this Bhakti Lata Beej from by the mercy of Guru and Krishna, and this is sown in the heart, field of the heart, and it grows because of Shravanadi Jal, Sechan. When it is nourished or sprinkled with the Shravanadi Jal, it slowly creeper starts growing. This is a spiritual creeper. It crosses the Brahmand, crosses the Viraja, and crosses the Vaikuntha planets and reaches the lotus feet of Krishna and takes complete shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna and attains Krishna Prem. But yet, Yadi Hati Mata Uthe Vaishnava Aparad. If one commits a Vaishnava Aparad, what does the verse say? It's very heavy. Chaitanya Charitamrita mentions Uphadeva Chinde Tara Shuki Ayapata. If one commits a Vaishnava Aparad, then what happens? Uphadeva Chinde, the Hatimata Vaishnava Aparad offense is compared that it will uproot the creeper and break it from the root, and it will leave the creepers dry. It will dry up. So this is what we had discussed in the first class, and we began with this first section where among the different kinds of offenses we commit, जीव यत प्रकार अपराध करिते पारे तान मध्ये वैष्णव नंदा तुल्य और भयानक अपराध नहीं. So there is no offense like terrible as a Vaishnava aparad. So that is why we have to analyze according to Shastra what exactly is Vaishnava aparad. So we saw this Kand Puran verse, Nindam Kurvanti Ye Muda Vaishnavan Mahatmana Patanti Pitrobhya Sardha Maharorave Samhita. And what are the offenses? Hanti, Nindanti, Vadveshti, Vaishnavanam, Na Binandanti, Krudyate Yati, No Harsham, Darshane, Patanani Shat. Killing, criticizing, hating, not welcoming, becoming angry at, and not attaining, delighted upon seeing Vaishnavas. So among these six, you should also mark very carefully the sixth one. We might take it very lightly, but this is also a Vaishnav aparadh. So we discussed this first section, and then the Bhagavatam verse also. One who hears criticism of the Lord or his devotee, he should leave that place immediately. Otherwise, he'll degrade and lose all his spiritual credits. So the next section, which we had the discussion in the last class, was the different categories of jiva and appropriate conduct with each. And we saw if these are the kind of warnings about Vaishnava Aparadh. First, identify Vaishnavas and establish which activities lead to Vaishnava Aparadh. First, identify who is a Vaishnava and what are the activities which lead to Vaishnava Aparadh. So there was this categorization of ordinary jivas, sadharan jiva, dharmik jiva, and Brahman o Vaishnava praya, the Brahmanas who are following the Varnashram. And there are the Vaishnavas. And then these are the four kinds of jivas. And Jiva Matra Shri Krishna Radhishtan, E Buddhi Sakal Jive ke Adar Kari Uchita. Because Krishna resides in the heart of every jiva, generally we should what? Give respect to each and every living being. But then there is categorization. For the dharmic jivs, special request, special respect. For the brahmanas, we should honor them. Namo Brahmanyaya, Namo Brahmanyaya, Go Brahmana Hitayacha. Namo Brahmanya Devaya, sorry. And for the Vaishnavas, we should serve them. So this is the how we should honor them based on, because all living entities are not at the same level of consciousness. So based on their level of consciousness, we should honor them. By not honoring the first three categories, we get papa. But not honoring the Vaishnavas, we get aparadh. And this is the difference between papa and aparadh. Papa affects the gross and subtle bodies, whereas aparadh pertains to the soul and it causes fall down. And that's why there should be special apprehension about, committing offense. So in this context, we discussed, aparadh is like vajralepa and pap is like dhuli lepa. Dhuli lep immediately goes away, but vajralepa, it's not easy for it to go away. So this is the difference between pap and aparadh. So this is where we had finished our discussion in the last class. So let us begin now today's discussion. Three types of Vaishnavas according to Srimad Bhagavatam, Kanishta, Madhyama and Uttama. Now, Vaishnavas, if you don't serve them with due respect, then there is aparadh, correct? Now then within Vaishnavas, there are different types of Vaishnavas. And this is, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is analyzing this based on the Srimad Bhagavatam perspective. From the Srimad Bhagavatam perspective, the Kanishta Vaishnava, Madhyam Vaishnava and Uttam Vaishnava. So let us see what Bhaktivinoda Thakur has to say about it. Srimad Bhagavate Nimlikita Tinati Shloka Dwara Vaishnava, Vaishnavatara O Vaishnavatama E Vibhaga Krame Vaishnava Nirdesh Kara Hayache. In the Srimad Bhagavate, through the following 3 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, निम्नलिखित तीनिते श्लोके द्वारा Vaishnavas have been categorically identified. A vibhaga krame Vaishnav nirdesh kare hayache. Identified as what? Vaishnavas, Vaishnava, better Vaishnavas, Vaishnavatara, and Vaishnavatama, best Vaishnavas. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, this categorization of in 3 verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam, there is Vaishnavas, better Vaishnavas, and best Vaishnavas. So let us see which is that verse. This is a very famous verse from the Navaigandra teachings, which we are aware, but today we will be having a very deep insight from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, what he has to say about it. So let us see first Kanishta Vaishnava. Kanishta Vaishnava yata archayam eva hare pujam ya shraddaya hetah na tad bhakteshu chaneshu sabhakta prakrita smrita. The Kanishta Vaishnava is as follows. He who faithfully engages in worship of Lord Hari in his deity form. Archayam eva hare pujam. Faithfully. Yah shraddaya heta. But does not honor his devotees. Na tad bhakteshu chaneshu. Not his devotees also and others. The bhakta prakrita smrita is considered, such a Vaishnava is considered as a materialistic devotee. See the translation. Prakrita. He's called as a Prakrita Bhakta, materialistic devotee. So let us see what Bhaktivinoda Thakur has to say about this. Inni loka parampara prapt shraddha sahakare Shri Murtira. Oh, maybe I missed something. No. Okay. 1 second. Yeah, correct. इन्हीं लोक परंपरा प्राप्त श्रद्धा सहकारे श्री मूर्तिर हरि पूजा करेना किंतु हरि भक्तर पूजा करेना ना. He who worships Lord Hari in his deity form with faith, loka parampara prapta shraddha. Now mark this, parampara, loka parampara, from ordinary, parampara, faith, sahakare, with that faith, Sri Murti Hare Puja, they do the deity worship. Obtained through family tradition. This is called as what? Loka Parampara Prapta Shraddha. But does not worship Lord Hari's devotees. Hari Puja Karena, Kintu Hari Bhaktera Puja Karena na. So, what is the highest worship? Even Krishna also in the Adi, Puran tells, or Lord Shiva also tells, Aradhanam Sarvesham Vishnu Aradhanam Param. So if you ask the Shastras, nowhere in the Shastras is demigod worship recommended. If you want to ask the Shastras are speaking that Shiva is telling Devi, Aradhanam Sarvesham Vishnu Aradhanam Param. We should worship Vishnu. And superior to that, Tad Bhakteshu, worship of his devotee is superior to worship of the Lord. So those who are in this Lok Parampara Prap Shraddha, faith obtained from family tradition, they do not worship Lord Hari's devotees. Hari Bhaktera Puja Karenana is a Kanishta Vaishnava. Tini Kanishta Vaishnava. Arthat Bhakti Tattva Pravesh Matra Karitachen. That is, he has merely entered into the philosophy of devotional service. So why he doesn't worship Lord Hari's devotees? Because he doesn't know the Bhakti Tattva, this secret Tattva, which I was quoting. I could not quote the full verse because I don't really remember. But this is how it begins. Aradhanam Sarvesham Vishnu Aradhanam Param. And superior to that, is the worship of his devotee. Parampara Prapta Shraddha or Shastriya Shraddhara Prabheda ये परंपरा प्राप्त श्रद्धा केवल लौकिक शिक्षा हईते उदय होय. So now, because he has mentioned this, because they have this faith obtained from family tradition. So the difference between faith obtained through such tradition, parampara prap shraddha, and faith in Shastra or Shastri Shraddha, Prabeda AA, is as follows. Faith obtained through such tradition is only generated by worldly education. Parampara Prapta Shraddha keval laukik shiksha, worldly education hai uday hoy. So this kind of faith is not the pure faith of the soul. This is obtained from some ordinary worldly education, worldly knowledge of some common knowledge, what you can say. Now, here is a note. This faith obtained through tradition is the faith obtained through a non-scriptural tradition. So now it is mentioning non-scriptural tradition means they are not connected to the Guru Shishya Parampara. They somehow by their culture, by their upbringing, they have been, doing Shaligram, worship. And I know one very nice devotee. He's coming from a very Brahmana family. And right from childhood, he's been worshipping Shaligram. And he comes to our temple, ISKCON temple, and he also does deity worship. But all said and done, he comes, does a deity worship, goes. He doesn't much associate with devotees. He doesn't have much loving reciprocation of the devotees, nor does he sit and hear the classes which are spoken based on Bhakti Shastras, like the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So they have faith obtained through their tradition, and it is a non-scriptural tradition. Non-scriptural means it is not coming in the Guru Shish Parampara. So this is about Parampara Prapta Shraddha. Oh, something went wrong. Okay. Shastriya Shraddha te Shastra Vakya Gad Vishwas. Oh, Tad Vakya Pramana Dwara Vaishnav Jana Prati Shraddha Uday Hoye. Then what is Shastriya Shraddha? In faith in Shastra, respect for Vaishnavas is generated. By Shastriya Shraddha, we have faith, God, Vishwas, deep faith on the scriptural statements and on the authority of these statements. Based on the authority of the statements, how Vaishnavas are dear to Vishnu, when we hear the Shastric statements, we develop respect for Vaishnavas. Now, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has given further understanding of what is this Shastric Shraddha, and he calls it as Laukik Shraddha. The Paramparik Shraddha, he calls it as Laukik Shraddha. When there is a perfect marriage of Shraddha with transcendental understanding, then this is called Shastri Shraddha, faith based on proper scriptural conclusions, based on the Shastra. So Shraddha, in one sense, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying it is marriage. So when we come in connection with a bona fide spiritual master and hear from the Shastras and develop faith in the Guru who is speaking and in the Shastras and the Sadhus, that is called as Shastri Shraddha. So Shraddha is the beginning of spiritual life. We all know Shraddha, Sadhu, Sangha, Bhajan, Kriya. But this Shraddha word has a very, very deep meaning also. This is first level of understanding of the meaning of word Shraddha. Shraddha means developing faith in the scriptures and faith in the sadhus and gurus. So Shraddha also means Vishwas. Vishwas means deep faith, or what is called in the Bhagavatam as firm faith, Naishtiki Shraddha. So when one, practices spiritual life and he has deep faith in the Shastras, he can understand the conclusions of the Shastras, he can present arguments based on the Shastras and defeat others and preach, and his faith is very firm in the Shastras which cannot be shaken. So that is called as what? Vishwas. deep faith. Shraddha sabde vishwas sudrida nischay. Sudrida, that faith is very strong and deep. So that is called as, another understanding, another higher level of understanding of Shraddha means Naishtiki Shraddha or deep faith. The beginning stages of Shraddha is called as Komala Shraddha, even in devotional life. And many times I compare this to a banana tree. A banana tree can be easily shaken. So somebody else can break their faith easily. But Naishtiki Shraddha is like a banyan tree. Nobody can shake a banyan tree. And also there is a higher, deeper meaning of Shraddha. That is, the word Shraddha comes, you can break it up and say Shra and Da. And Shra refers to the heart, and Da means to give. So here the heart refers not to the physical heart, which has its, four different divisions, or the emotional heart, which is connected to do with our emotions, and it is basically the mind, the subtle body. But we are speaking about the spiritual heart, the soul. So when we, give our heart to Krishna, completely our heart surrender to Krishna, Atma Nivedanam, as it is mentioned, or Atma Samarpanam. So when we completely offer our heart to Krishna, that is also called a Shraddha. And at the stage of Bhava, our heart is fully attracted to Krishna and we are completely surrendered to Krishna. So Shraddha can be in the Kanishta stage, Shraddha definition can be in the Madhyama stage, which is called as Naishtiki Shraddha. And a deeper meaning of Shraddha is to completely offer our heart to Krishna, Shra and Dha. So that's why Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying, it's like marriage. We have to get married to the Srimad Bhagavatam. We should become attached to the Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is called as Shastri Shraddha, initial faith in the transcendental understanding and faith on. In contrast, deity worship bereft of the clear and correct concept of Sambandh Gyan is conducted on a level of mechanical, ritualistic, Lokik Shraddha. Deity worship just without having, this Sambandh Gyan knowledge, then it is what? Lokik Shraddha. Hence, we deduce that although this is the initial stage of bhakti, it is certainly not Shuddha Bhakti. So it is not Shuddha Bhakti. That's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions. Further, it is said, these are some of the quotations from different compilations. The sadhaka should first hear Tattva Shravana. As long as he is not situated on the platform of Tattva, he has no adhikar for Shuddha Bhakti, no qualification for pure devotion. Srila Jiva Goswami has stressed this point. First, the sadhaka earns Shastriya Shraddha, faith in Sadhu, Shastra and Guru. This is what I was mentioning. When we develop faith in Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, especially the Bhakti literatures, then the pure faith of Shraddha of the soul is, awakened in the heart. If one is not initiated in Shabda Brahma, it is to be understood that he has not yet developed Shastriya Shraddha. So please understand this word, initiated in Shabda Brahma. When we first got initiated, when we started hearing, when we first attended a Bhagavad class or a Gita class, and we started hearing the transcendental vibration, sound vibration, and we developed faith in the words of the sadhu, then we purchased some Prabhupada books and started reading, we developed that faith in the Shastra. So that from that point, initiation has started. Initiation means also Divya Gyan. So if one is not initiated in Shabda Brahma, it is to be understood that he has not yet developed Shastriya Shraddha. A Kanishta Adhikari is one who offers worship to the deity form of Lord Hari, Archa Vigra, with Laukik Shraddha, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur is in the Vaishnav Ninda is explaining. Ordinary faith, not Shastriya Shraddha, faith based on the Shastras. It is a question of faith. One should strive to develop Shastriya Shraddha. A Kanishta Adhikari, a neophyte, has not yet progressed beyond Lokik Shraddha. How we can understand he has not yet progressed beyond Lokik Shraddha? This is the symptom. Na tad chanyeshu sa bhakta prakrita sprita. If he is not respecting the devotees, and he's not having, friendship with the devotees. Na tad bhakteshu cha anneshu. Anneshu means he's the innocent people he is not preaching. That means his faith is, not fully grounded on Shastri Shraddha. One who does not offer respect to the devotees of Lord Hari and is not compassionate towards other living entities in whom Lord Hari is present is a Kanishta Bhakta. So two things, he is, does not offer respect to Lord Hari, na tad bhakteshu, and towards other living entities, compassion towards other living entities. Cha anneshu. Cha anneshu refers to not having compassion. So if somebody is at this level, he is a Kanishta Bhakta, Prakrita Bhakta. That is what is the term used. His Shraddha is not solidly Shastriya Shraddha, but it is Laukik Shraddha. One whose Shraddha is soft, who has not developed Shastriya Shraddha, who only has Laukik Shraddha, faith in what common people say, is a Kanishta Jana, a neophyte. By associating, hearing from, and putting firm faith in the words of more elevated Vaishnavas, he will gradually make advancement and ultimately become a Uttama Bhakta. So slowly, by associating with Vaishnavas and hearing from the Vaishnavas, he will give up, his knowledge based on worldly education or worldly understanding of, whatever scriptures he might be reading. But he will now develop faith in the bhakti scriptures, and slowly his Shraddha will become firm. So the Uttama Bhakta here is mentioned as Shastra Yukta Nipuna Proud Shraddha Yahar, as in the Chaitanya Charitamrita it is mentioned. Shastra Yukta means he is expert in understanding the conclusions of Shastra, and he is what? Proud Shraddha, matured faith. So this is referring to, so Shastriya Shraddha is described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So I had quoted this: Shraddha Shabde Vishwas Kahe Sudrida Nishchay Krishna Bhakti Kaile Sarva Karma Krita Hoy. Shraddha means very strong, unflinching faith, Sudrida Nishchay in Sadhu, Shastra, Guru and Krishna. If someone develops Krishna Bhakti, all his other activities are finished. Krishna Bhakti Kaile Sarva Karma Krita. Nothing is left out if one has faith. So this is deep faith. So sometimes we see devotees, come into the Hare Krishna movement. They take up to the chanting, following the regulative principles. And even after many years, it is observed, especially in the Vedic tradition, which is still there in India, that before maybe they had, faith in some demigod worship, or they used to do what the common masses used to do, Ganesh worship during the Ganesh Chaturdashi. So they, also do these other festivals of demigod worship, but in what, knowledge they are doing is very, very important. Some do it with the knowledge that, oh, I was worshipping before coming into Krishna consciousness Ganesh. If I don't worship him, then I will get some reaction. So let me also do that worship. So if he has this kind of understanding, then his Shastriya Shraddha is not strong. Although he's practicing Krishna consciousness, he still has Laukik Shraddha. There is another understanding. If he thinks, oh, in my house every year they get Ganesh, and now I've become a Krishna devotee, and if I'm fanatic, oh, don't worship Ganesh, and I start arguing, then they will oppose me, and they will say that or this devotee is why is speaking against it. So they don't have knowledge about Krishna. At least they are doing some demigod worship. So you just attend that, do that, whatever Ganesh worship, or you get Ganesh at your home. But what is your knowledge that ultimately Ganesh is also, devotee of Lord Narasimhadev, as in the Brahma Samhita it is mentioned, and ultimately they are part and parcels of Krishna. So your faith you purely maintain for Krishna, And just for, not to disturb the family members or the common people, if you're doing, then that is okay. But usually, many devotees, when I inquire, they tell, oh no, if we don't do, then something will happen to us. We might get some sinful reactions. So these kind of understandings, conceptions they have. So that means their Shastriya Shraddha is not faith. Shraddha sabde Vishwas kaile Sudrida Nishchay. That Sudrida Nishchay is not there. If I perform Krishna Bhakti, everything is taken care. I need not do anything else. So this kind of firm faith, they might be lacking. Shastriya Shraddha means to have unflinching faith in the Shastriya Siddhantas. So this is a deeper understanding. Siddhant, Shastriya Shraddha, we should have unflinching faith, the teachings of which are given especially as found in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the essence of all Vedas, Vedanta and Upanishads. So Srimad Bhagavatam is the essence of the Shruti, Smriti and the Nyaya Prasthams. Sarva Vedanta Saram hi Shri Bhagavatam Mishyate Tadrasamrita Truptasya Nanyat Swadrati Kvachet. Srimad Bhagavatam is declared to the essence of all Vedanta philosophy. One who has felt satisfaction from its nectarian mellow will never be attracted to any other literature. So many devotees also even coming in ISKCONs are attracted to reading many other Puranas sometimes, But what is Bhagavatam saying? One will never be attracted to any other literature. That is so much Rasamrit is there in this. Nanyatra Swadrati Kuchit. He'll not have attraction. Even what is mentioned by Vyasdev, Dharma Projita Kaitavo Paramo Nirmatsaranam Satam Vedam Vastavamatra Shivadam Taptrayon Mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamune Krit Kimva Pare Ishvara. Srimad Bhagavatam is given by Mahamuni Vyas in his highest level of maturity. It is the last compilation of his Kimva Pareshwar. What is the need of any other literature? So we should have this kind of faith for Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Jiva Goswami has put emphasis on Shastriya Shraddha. One should develop Shastriya Shraddha, not Laukik Shraddha. He gives an example. One who is a neophyte devotee, a Kanishta Adhikari, only has Laukik Shraddha. Laukik Shraddha means to only believe or put faith in the words of materialist scientists, philosophers, etc. So this in the modern context, Prabhupada, if you see the book Life Comes From Life, Prabhupada is having these conversations with His Holiness Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj. And Prabhupada is smashing, the words of the materialistic philosophers or the materialistic scientists and establishing the Bhagavad conclusions. One reason what Prabhupada was doing this is so that his disciples can develop faith in the words of the scriptures, faith in Shastriya Shraddha, and not to have faith in this materialistic literatures or so many other philosophical works also. Faith in the words of sadhus, Vaishnavas, Mahajans, and those who are acharyas has not yet developed for them. For example, people here may say, there is a ghost in that tree. When someone comes and hears from them, he will say, the people say there is a ghost in that tree. Because he has heard it from the local people, if he comes here when the electricity is out and there is dense darkness, he may see something there. Oh yes, it is the ghost. That is Laukik Shraddha. When the electricity comes back on, he realizes it was only a dead tree. He thought it was a ghost because it looked white. So this is having faith in materialistic people, what they speak, what you hear, and pinning your faith on that. You see things and then you think, oh, it must be true. So like that, this is kind of an example of Laukik Shraddha. So you remember, if you remember in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited Vrindavan, he had gone with his servant, Balabhadra Bhattacharya, I think. I don't recollect the name. So Mahaprabhu was, residing in Vrindavan, and every day the Vaishnavas were inviting him for prasad. Mahaprabhu was million times ecstatic when he was living in Vrindavan. And on the bank of Yamuna, in the night, uh, a fisherman is to go for fishing, and he had his lantern. And the people there were thinking that, seeing in the night, oh, this must be Krishna dancing on the Kaliya. The Kaliya Daman Leela is happening. So the word spread, and even Mahaprabhu's servant also thought like that, and he told Mahaprabhu, oh, they say that Krishna nowadays in the night he is dancing on Kaliya on the Yamuna. So Mahaprabhu laughed. So this is the kind of lokik shraddha, which, we should be very careful as devotees. Unless one develops Shastri Shraddha and deals with others as Narad Muni has instructed, one will be affected by the threefold miseries of this material world. One will never be happy. So we have to develop faith in the Shastras, not faith in Lokik Shraddha. So now, I have just explained these 9 stages. Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajan Kriya, Anarth Nivritti, Nishta, Ruchi, Asakti, Bhava. And I have added here Shastri Shraddha. And there is Kanishta Adhikari, Madhyam Adhikari, and Uttam Adhikari. Right now, Kanishta Adhikari we have been discussing, and there are these 2 categories we saw. One is Shastri Shraddha. He is Kanishta. No, he is what? He's just a Kanishta, one who has. So this is a little, different from what, there is. The one who has Shastri Shraddha, he is more advanced compared to one who has Lokik Shraddha and worshipping the deities. So there can be some subdivision here. I have not done that, but just for your understanding, those who have Shraddha in the Bhakti literatures, associate with the sadhus, respect the sadhus, they chant the holy names, so they purify and go through these stages. But those who are having Lokik Shraddha, they don't associate with sadhus, they don't, respect them, and they don't also are compassionate to the people in general. Maybe I should have put here the Lokik Shraddha. So they are Prakrita Smrita. So that is how Bhaktivinoda Thakur has explained the Kanishta Adhikari. Now these are other terms also. Somebody who is in between here, he is called as the Kanishta Madhyam. Somebody who is within the Madhyam Adhikari range, which is a long range, there is Madhyam Madhyam, who is at the stage of Nishta. And then somebody who is very close to Asakti is also called as Madhyam Uttam. So these are other sub-terminologies. Now let us see further what Bhaktivinoda Thakur has to say. We will finish this discussion, and if you have any questions, then we'll take it up. Let us finish this Shastriya Shraddha and Lokik Shraddha. Shastriya Shraddha Uday Hoila Jiva Madhyam Adhikari Asta. As soon as faith in Shastra awakens, the living being becomes a Madhyam Adhikari, Vaishnava. So see the, when Shastriya Shraddha awakens, immediately he does Sadhu Sangha Bhajan Kriya, and he is almost on the stage of Madhyama. Because he will have Shastriya Shraddha, he will respect the sadhus, he'll hear the sadhus will tell him to chant Hare Krishna, he'll begin chanting Hare Krishna. So he's almost on the stage of Madhyam. As long as it does not arise, ye paryanta tahar uday na hoy, the sadhaka's eligibility to engage in the duties of varnashram are not destroyed. Sadhakera karma adhikari shay hoy na. So those who are in the varnashram, especially, they are doing their varnashram duties. The Brahmana has sattvic impressions, so he has faith based on his nature. He has faith in his swabhava. His swabhava is sattvic impressions, and he does karma which is given in the Dharma Shastras. And the Dharma Shastras say, oh Brahmana, this is your duty based on your nature. But the soul's nature is to do pure devotional service. So when he meets a pure Vaishnava and he hears a philosophy and takes up to pure devotional service, then he need not perform his varnashram duties, because by doing pure devotional service, everything is taken care. But even if he doesn't come in touch with a pure devotee and he continues to be what? Following the varnashram duties, as long as pure faith is not, attained by him, shastriya shraddha is not attained. So as I was explaining, there is the nature, subtle body nature, swabhava. According to the nature, there is the inclination for activities, swakarma, and then there is a swadharma. So varnashram is based on swadharma. Swadharma based on our swabhav. Whereas pure devotional service is the swadharma of the soul. It is the faith of the soul. That is bhakti. Bhakti is the only way by which we can attain the highest goal. So this is how we should understand what is Shastriya Shraddha. There is one question, but I'll take up, just let me finish this discussion. We'll finish this discussion and hopefully maybe by that time it will be clear, or still then I will take it. Tahake Shriman Mahaprabhu e rupe bolena. Shuddha Vaishnav nahi kintu Vaishnavara pray. Mahaprabhu has said something to Raghunath Das Goswami. Mahaprabhu has referred to such persons as follows. E rupa bolena. They are not pure Vaishnavas. Shuddha Vaishnav nahi. Kintu Vaishnavara pray. However, they are almost like Vaishnavas. So this is in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Antilila. So let us go to Chaitanya Charitamrita Antilila and understand what is Mahaprabhu saying. Now, this is, with respect to pastimes with Raghunath Das Goswami. Raghunath Das Goswami had come to Jagannath Puri, had taken shelter of Mahaprabhu, and, he was taking instructions from Sarup Damodar. He was, entrusted to Sarup Damodar. And that time, Raghunath Das Goswami was thinking, oh, Mahaprabhu, many grahasthas are also inviting him and, calling him for prasad. So I also should invite him for prasad. And to invite for prasad, there was some expenses. So that time Raghunath Das Goswami, from his parents who had sent, two servants because they were very attached to their son, they had sent also some Lakshmi. So with that Lakshmi, he started feeding Mahaprabhu. But after a few days, he stopped inviting Mahaprabhu. And then Mahaprabhu asked Sarup Damodar, why is Raghunath Das no more inviting me? So then he said, oh, he's feeling that maybe, he's taking money from his parents who are wealthy merchants, and they are engaged in so much sense gratification also. So it is coming from not from a good source. So that's why he has stopped. Mahaprabhu was very pleased. Vishayara anna khaila malin hoye man. That time he spoke this. Similarly, this is a verse. He tells, Yadyadi brahmanyara kare brahmanyara sahay shuddha vaishnav nahi hoya vaishnava pray. So Mahaprabhu is giving his verdict. Although your father and uncle, Govardhan Majumdar and Hiranya, are charitable to brahmanas, brahmanara kaya sai, brahmanya kare, they are charitable to brahmanas and greatly help them, they are nevertheless not pure Vaishnavas. Shuddha Vaishnav nahi. Hoye Vaishnava pray. However, they are almost like Vaishnavas. Now, Srila Prabhupada in his purport is making all this very, very clear about Lokik Shraddha and Shastri Shraddha. Please hear attentively. As stated by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Amrita Prabhava Bhashya, some people, usually very rich men, dress like Vaishnavas and give charity to Brahmanas. Say dress like Vaishnavas. That means they put dhoti kurta, apply tilak, and they are very charitable. They are also attached to deity worship. In the home, they might be having the deities, and they might have appointed a Brahmana also to every day come and do deity worship. But because of their attachment to material enjoyment, they cannot be pure Vaishnavas. Anya abhilashita shunyam jnana karmadi anavritam. Prabhupada is quoting Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. The pure Vaishnava has no desire for material enjoyment. That is the basic qualification of a pure Vaishnava. So we might ask now, we have also taken to Bhakti, we have got the pure faith, Shastra Shraddha, we have faith in Guru, Sadhu and Vaishnavas. But in my heart, I have so many desires, so many vasanas which trouble me. So am I a pure Vaishnava? We are pure Vaishnavas, but how do we see those desires? We pursue them? No, we see them as anarthas. So we are pure Vaishnavas, but anarth nivritti has not yet happened. When anarth nivritti happens, when the heart gets purified, then we are pure Vaishnavas, where anarth nivritti has happened. But here, these Vaishnavas whom Mahaprabhu is speaking, that the father and uncle, they are what? They are having anya abhilasha. They have an abhilasha to desire to enjoy in this world. So they don't have that pure faith. This is the meaning. There are men, especially rich men, who regularly worship the deity, give charity to Brahmanas, and are pious in every respect. But they cannot be pure Vaishnavas. Prabhupada is saying in this commentary. Despite their outward show of Vaishnavism and charity, their inner desire is to enjoy a higher standard of material life. Raghunath Das' father, Govardhan, and his uncle, Hiranyadas, were both very charitable to Brahmanas. Indeed, the Brahmanas from the Gaudiya district were practically dependent upon them. Thus, they were accepted as very pious gentlemen. However, they presented themselves as Vaishnavas to the eyes of people in general. Although, from a purely spiritual point of view, they were ordinary human beings, not pure Vaishnavas. From externally, if you see them, they look like Vaishnavas from the people's perspective. But from a pure spiritual point of view, they were not pure Vaishnavas. Actual Vaishnavas, Prabhupada is saying, considered them almost Vaishnavas, not pure Vaishnavas. Ordinary people considered them as Vaishnavas, but real Vaishnavas, actual Vaishnavas, considered them Vaishnav Pray. This is also the mata or the opinion of Mahaprabhu and the opinion of Bhaktivinoda Thakurs. So this is how, fine distinction is done between who are actual Vaishnavas. In other words, they are Kanishtadhikaris, for they were ignorant of higher Vaishnav regulative principles. So, many times, even in our, spiritual life in ISKCON, we should be able to identify who are actually Vaishnavas and Vaishnav Pray. I'll give you one example of, one wealthy, rich person whom I know. He comes to the temple, applies tilak, comes in a Vaishnav dress, takes the darshan of the deity, doesn't talk to anyone, and just goes away. Gives donation whenever it is asked. For other works also he gives donations. But doesn't associate with Vaishnavas, doesn't come for lectures, hear the Bhakti Shastri literatures, and practice the regulative principles according to the guidance of sadhus, gurus, and read Bhakti Shastri literatures. So their faith, they look like almost Vaishnavas because they apply tilak, they have mala also. But, their Shraddha is not solidly grounded in Shastri Shraddha. So this is also the analysis of Mahaprabhu, and Prabhupada in his commentary is making it very clear. So this is the difference between Shastri Shraddha and Laukika Shraddha. Now Prabhupada lastly says, nevertheless, they could not be called as Vishayas, blind materialistic enjoyers. So, he's giving a very balanced, understanding. You cannot call them, materialistic enjoyers because, they have some, They are not pure Vaishnavas. They are externally, dressing themselves as Vaishnavas. They are doing charitable work. In people's eyes, they are Vaishnavas, but actual Vaishnavas consider them as almost Vaishnavas. So this is a fine distinction Prabhupada himself is giving in his commentary. So now, one more slide, and then we'll take up question answers. प्राकृत साधु संग होइले कनिष्ठ वैष्णव अर्थात वैष्णव प्राय जीव शुद्ध वैष्णव होते पारे न. A Kanishta Vaishnava, that is a living entity who is almost a Vaishnava, Pray Vaishnav, can become a pure Vaishnava as soon as he attains the association of genuine sadhus. When he attains the association of genuine sadhus, hears them, and based on their instructions, he starts following spiritual life. So a Vaishnava Pray can become a Vaishnava. Now here is a note, Vaishnava Pray, this refers to the Vaishnava Pray Jivas or those living entities who resemble Vaishnavas but are not yet conversant with the science of Bhakti. Bhakti Tattva, they are not conversant. Now, any questions regarding what we discussed till now? There was one hand up. Yes, Maya Narasimha Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you very much for such elaborate discussion and explanation, Prabhu. Prabhu, here once you mentioned about Shastriya Shraddha and you related with Varnashrama Dharma can be given up. So I remember saying that until unless one comes to the stage of Ruchi, he should not abandon his Varnashrama duties. So how this Shastriya Shraddha is related to Varnashrama Dharma quitting?
I would like to ask a question. Are we now doing any Varnashram Dharma? Is the Varnashram Dharma presently existing in the society?
As far as I understand, Varnashram Dharma means fulfilling our family obligations and prescribed duties.
No. That's not Varnashram Dharma. Varnashram Dharma is, Varnashram Dharma is very clearly mentioned in the Shastras. Varnashram Dharma is a division of Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudra based on Varna and Ashram. Chatur Varnya, Maya Shrishtam, Guna Karma Vibhakrisha. This is a division. And based on the Varnashram Dharma, there is nature, Swabhavas, and there is inclination to do those kind of activities. That is Swakarma. And there is a specific Dharma. So Arjuna, from the Leela point of view, he is acting as a Kshatriya. So his Kshatriya Swadharma, he has to follow the, Shastras, like the Kautilya Shastras. Kautilya Shastras, or there are other Shastras which deal, which are Shastras meant for Kshatriyas. And then there are the Artha Shastras. The Artha Shastras are part of the Dharma Shastras which deal with for Vaishyas because they are into business. So then there are Shastras for the Brahmanas. The Brahmanas, they have to do Patan, Vedas and all studies. So what are their duties, are mentioned in the Dharma Shastras. So nobody is following today in this world any Dharma Shastras. And nobody can follow because Varnashram is lost, So today in this world, we have been given by Mahaprabhu's mercy directly, practice of the Varna, the Swabhava of the soul, that is pure devotional service. We have been directly, given this highest process, that is pure devotional service. And what our nature is there, we have our nature. Somebody is Brahminical in nature, somebody is, administrative in nature, somebody is business-minded in nature. That nature, we are directly dovetailing in Krishna's service. So that's how, we are, working now. So this clear distinction one should have. Is it clear?
Yes, bro. I spelled it wrong way, but I had this understanding what you are saying. But if it is not being followed, then what is the point in saying that one can give up? What we need to understand by your statement?
See, now when Bhaktivinoda Thakur is speaking, he is speaking when Varnashram Dharma was existing, when Varnashram was being followed. The purpose of Varnashram Dharma is the society is peacefully, set so that everyone can go towards the ultimate goal, that is pure devotional service only. Ultimately, it is meant, so that things can be very smoothly going in the society. So ultimately, if you're doing Varnashram Dharma, the purpose is so that you can do what? Shravan Kirtan, by coming in touch with the pure sadhu. So once, it is favorable, being situated in your Varna and Ashrama, you get the association of pure sadhu, get pure faith, and with that pure faith, you should, be properly situated in the society and take up to pure devotional service. Now, in today's context, Prabhupada recommended Varnashrama not as a implementation of Varnashram Dharma, but the agrarian part of it, living, based on agriculture, because that life is a peaceful life where your bodily needs are taken care and you get time to chant Hare Krishna. Prabhupada's famous statement is there, lead a simple life based on agriculture and save time to chant Hare Krishna. So that was the purpose, So this clear distinction we should have. Any other questions regarding till now what we discussed about Shastriya Shraddha and Laukik Shraddha? I hope it is very, very clear to all of you. So let us now come to, after Kanishta discussion, there is the Madhyama discussion. Who is a Madhyamadhikari? मध्यम वैष्णव यथा ईश्वर तद अधीनेषु बालिषु दुष्यत्सु च प्रेम मैत्री कृपोपेक्षा यह करोति स मध्यम. He who exhibits love, prema Ishwar, friendship, maitri tad adhineshu, and negligence in relationship, mercy. I think there is some mistake in the, I think there is some, mistake in the translation, and negligence in relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I don't know why it's love, friendship, mercy, and negligence. It is mentioned here. I'll have to check. Persons who have taken fully to Krishna consciousness, ignorant persons and persons envious of Krishna respectively, is a second class. There is something wrong with the translation, but I'll just explain. Ishvara, they do prem. Tadanineshu means the devotees, they develop friendship. Balishu, those who are innocent, they preach, they show compassion. Dvishyatsu, upeksha. Upeksha means they are indifferent or they neglect them. Yah karoti samadhyama. One who does so is a madhyama. I'm not able to right now, figure out that. So that's why I said, let me see later on. Okay, I got the. He who exhibits love, friendship, mercy, and negligence in relationship to the Supreme Person. Yes, I got it now. So, love to Supreme, friendship, and mercy and negligence. All four are here mentioned. Prem, Maitri, Kripa, Upeksha. Persons who have taken fully to Krishna consciousness, who are they? That is, ignorant persons, Balishu, and persons envious of Krishna, that is Vishwasu, respectively, is the second class. Yeah, that makes sense, right? Now, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, what he has to say about Madhyamadhikari, let us see. Any Ishvara Prem, Vaishnava Maitri, Balishu Artat Bhakti Tattva Abhigya, Vaishnava Praya Jiva, Kripa, Evam Bhagavad Videshi, O Vaishnava Dveshi Janera Prati Upeksha Artat अवस्था क्रमे औदासीन सहिष्णुता व परित्याग करेन तिनी मध्यम वैष्णव. He who loves the Lord, Ishvara Prem, befriends the Vaishnavas, Vaishnava Maitri, is compassionate upon the innocent. Balisha artat bhakti tattva abhigya. Here, Balisha means innocent, means they are not conversant with the scriptures. They are ignorant about the scriptures. So such persons, uh, he preaches them. That is, the living beings who are almost Vaishnavas and inexperienced in the philosophy of devotional service. So this can refer to those who are, Kanishta. Them also he teaches, and those who are general people also he preaches. And who neglects persons who hate the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vidveshi, Bhagavad Vidveshi or Vaishnav Dveshi Janara Prati Upeksha. He who exhibits indifference, Audasina is indifference, or tolerance upon them, Sahishnuta, or abandons their association, Parityag, Karena Tini Madhyama Vaishnava, is a Madhyam Vaishnava. So three things are mentioned about those who are envious. Either we should be indifferent or tolerant or abandon their association. So all these three, based on who is the person in front of us, it depends. If he is blaspheme the Lord, then we should immediately abandon that association. If he is ignorant and he is speaking about Krishna Tattva, which is not right, and we should tolerate that and slowly give the nice correct understanding. So there is some kind of tolerance also required. And sometimes there are some hardcore people, that time we have to show indifference. So like that, all these things, very fine understanding Bhaktivinoda Thakur is giving. Vidveshi gana o balisho e rupe buddhite taha dikeke yatha yogya kripa karena. Considering the hateful is also to be innocent. They also bestow appropriate mercy upon them. So here the Madhyamadhikari is mentioned that those who are Dveshi, he does upeksha. Upeksha means he neglects them. So that neglect itself also is a mercy. Madhyama Vaishnava Dikare Vaishnava Seva Adhikar. Only Madhyama Vaishnavas possess the eligibility to engage in Vaishnava Seva. So until one comes to the Madhyama level, he doesn't have the eligibility to do Vaishnava Seva, because a Madhyam level, one can do this distinguishing, and he can distinguish who is a Kanishta, who is a Madhyama, and who is a Mahabhagavat. Oh, the Mahabhagavat, I have to serve him intimately. He is the Madhyam, he is my equal, so I should have deep friendship. He is a Kanishta, I should preach to him. Or if he is very antagonistic, then I should, not be much in his association. So like that, this kind of discriminating intelligence only comes in Madhyamas, and by dealing with these three kind of Kanishta, Madhyama and Uttama, he is actually engaging in service. So only these Madhyam Vaishnavas possess the eligibility to engage in Vaishnav Seva. Ye to, ehe to, Kanishta Vaishnava taha karena na baliya taha nadike Vaishnava pray bolo yaya Vaishnava bala yaya na. Because Kanishta Vaishnavas do not engage in it, they are called almost Vaishnavas, but they cannot be called Vaishnavas. Because the Kanishta Vaishnavas, they don't engage in service, that's why they are called as Vaishnava Pray, and they are not called as Vaishnava Bola na Yaya na. They are not called as Vaishnavas. So we can see this development of how from a Vaishnava Pray he becomes a Vaishnava Kanishta, and then Madhyama. So many devotees they come and they don't respect other devotees, they don't befriend them, and they don't serve also Vaishnavas. So from that you can understand who is at what level. Now Uttamadhikari. This is the last part which I will like to take. And okay, there are only 3 slides, so this I will take and then we will stop the discussion. Sarvabhuteshu ya pashet bhagavat bhavam atmana bhutani bhagavat atmani Esha Bhagavata Uttama. Who is a Uttam Vaishnava? A person who sees the ability, a person who sees the ability of all objects to be engaged in the service of the Supreme Spirit Soul. See the definition what Bhaktivinoda Thakur said. Ability of all objects to be engaged in the service of the Lord. Prabhupada once, that famous, the flatbed truck, Prabhupada saw it from the window and he started asking his disciple, about the truck. And the disciple was wondering why Prabhupada is asking about truck. And then Prabhupada was thinking how to, do the Rath Yatra by having that flatbed truck as a, altar, the cart for Jagannath, Baldev and Subhadra. That's the first Rath Yatra. So all objects, he can engage in the service of the Lord. And all beings in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He can see all beings that the Lord is there. Bhagavad Bhava Atmana. The basic principle of all existence. Bhutani Bhagavad Atmani. All living beings are, actually they are residing in the Lord. Is the best of the devotees of the Supreme Lord. Esha Bhagavat Uttama. Now this is the Bhagavata Uttama. He who sees the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead dearest to his self in all creatures. Any Sarva Bhute Atma Bhishta Bhagavat Avir Bhava Drishti. He has that spiritual vision by which he sees that Supreme Personality Godhead is next to the self, and who experiences all those creatures in the form of Supreme Personality of Godhead manifested in his consciousness. Karena evam se samast bhautik sviya chitte spurti prapta bhagavat tattva anubhav karena. That is, arthat, he sees the world as Vaishnava in the sense that it is sheltered by him is a Uttama Vaishnava. Tad ashrita bhaud jagate Vaishnava boli dekina tini Uttama Vaishnava. So this vision of a Mahabhagavat is a hint and glimpse is given. E rupe Vaishnava Vaishnava Rupa Bheda Drishti Nai. Such a Vaishnava does not differentiate between Vaishnava and non-Vaishnava. Now here is a very important note. Since the entire world is sheltered by Vishnu and is Vaishnava in that sense, so the whole world is resting on the Lord in one sense. So there is none who is unsheltered by Vishnu and so non-Vaishnava in that sense. So their vision of how everyone is a Vaishnava, because everyone is sheltered by Vishnu in the form of Garbhodakshai Vishnu or in the form of Paramatma, So that is the vision. It's not that, the sense of Vaishnavism is different here for a Mahabhagavat. So that is the difference of a vision of a Mahabhagavat. Now, further note. Vaishnavas, the Kanishta stage attain faith in the scriptures, Shastra Shraddha, and hence become eligible to serve the Vaishnavas. They are thereafter described simply as Vaishnavas. Whereas those who have Laukik Shraddha, they only do Archa Vigra Seva, they don't, respect Vaishnavas, and they are not compassionate. So when they attain Shastriya faith, they are simply Vaishnavas. Madhyam Vaishnava, Vaishnavatara. Madhyam Vaishnavas are described as Vaishnavatara, having Vaishnava qualities to a profound degree. And that's why they have these 4 types of loving exchange. Uttama Vaishnavas, Vaishnavatama. Uttam Vaishnavas alone, the topmost Vaishnavas are described as Vaishnavatama, having Vaishnava qualities to the superlative degree. So we saw that they see everything, Bhagavad Bhava Atmana. So this is how Bhaktivinoda Thakur has first analyzed, because we have to give respect to the Vaishnavas. So who is the Vaishnava? Kanishta, Madhyama, Uttama, he has analyzed from the Bhagavad perspective. And the Bhagavad perspective is based on vision. This, I analyze it, and many times in the seminars of Nectar of Devotion and Nectar of Instruction, I've mentioned, a vision of a Kanishta Vaishnava is very narrow. I and my deity and no one else. Very narrow vision. The Madhyam vision is very broad. he has these 4 loving exchanges, Ishwar Tadadineshu Balishu, where the Uttama Vaishnava's vision is very, very broad. Everything is resting on the Lord. So every being is resting on the Lord. In that sense, everyone is a Vaishnava. So this is based on the Bhagavad vision, which Bhaktivinoda Thakur has analyzed who is a Kanishta, Madhyama and Uttama. Next, he will do the 3 classifications of Vaishnavism, Vaishnavas, according to the teachings of Srimad Mahaprabhu, who is a Vaishnava, Vaishnavtara and Vaishnavtama. So this we will take up in the next class on Thursday. I'm going a little slow because it is important to understand who are these Vaishnavas and why so many angles of understanding. It is also sometimes devotees have this, why, this is Bhagavad vision understanding, this is, from Chaitanya Charitamrita. So all these different classifications, taxonomies, the science of classification gives us a broader understanding of Vaishnavism. So that is why this classification we have to understand. So now, if you have any questions, you can raise your hand. There is one on the chat box, Bhakti Raghav Maharaj promoting Varnashram in that sense. Yes, it is based on, simple living, high thinking, based on agrarian, life. You can see his every project there. They are doing farming and all. Even in some of his Indonesia projects, also he is doing that. Maya Narsimbro, yeah, that meaning Madhyamadikari was right. I could not get it initially. Now there is one question by Nupur Mataji. An intermediate or a second-class devotee called Madhyamadikari offers his love to the Supreme Personality Godhead, is a sincere friend of all devotees of the Lord, shows mercy to the ignorant people who are innocent, and disregards those who are envious of the Supreme Personality Godhead. Yes. So what's the question? What is the question? I don't get it. Do you have any question, Mataji? No, not. Any questions do you have regarding what we discussed today? Kanishta, Madhyama and Uttama based on the Bhagavatam, and what is Shastriya Shraddha and Lokik Shraddha? There is one question which is being asked. Prashant Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Uttama Vaishnava said to be he doesn't distinguish between whether they are Kanishta Dikari or Madhyama Dikari or Uttama Dikari. He sees everyone equal. So
he sees everyone as Vaishnavas.
Everyone as Vaishnavas. So then in that case, then why the classification?
Why is the classification of the Uttama, the classification is because he is at the highest level of Vaishnavism. He is the most purest of the purest of Vaishnavas. And his vision is the broadest vision. So there is, I told you, the classification is based on vision. There is a very narrow vision of the Kanishta, I and my deity. The Madhyama vision is a little broader. And the Mahabhagat's vision is the broadest, where he sees, all living beings, are resting on the Lord, Paramatma. In that sense, all are Vaishnavas. So that is why the vision is the highest of the Mahabhagat. So that's why there is a classification based on the vision.
Thank you.
Is it clear?
Yes, Prabhu. Yes.
Any other questions?
No, knowing that, but just since it is said to be no distinguish between the Vaishnavas.
Yeah, he cannot distinguish, because he considers everyone as a Vaishnava and I'm not a Vaishnava. That is why the Mahabhagavats or the Uttamadhikaris, they cannot preach. So his pure vision, Krishna disturbs that vision in order to accomplish his task of connecting to the jivas, because only a Mahabhagavat who comes down to the Madhyam platform can do this discrimination and preach and give Shraddha, faith, and make devotees. So that's why Mahabhagava's vision is, his vision is disturbed by Krishna in one sense. And he comes down from that vision down to a Madhyamadhikari. But it doesn't mean that he's on the stage of Nishtha. He's at the stage of Prema only. But that Prema vision is disturbed so that he can come down and, a Madhyamadhikari can do distinguishing, and he can distinguish, and to the innocent he will preach, and he will, make them devotees. So that is why, the highest Vaishnava is a Mahabhagavat, but he has to come down to the platform of Madhyam to preach, in order to preach. Is it okay?
Yes, very clear.
Any other questions do you have? Okay, so we'll stop now. I'm going a little slow and systematic because very fine points Bhaktivinoda Thakur is bringing out about, who is a Vaishnava. Now he has analyzed from the Bhagavad perspective. In the next class on Thursday, we will take from the Chaitanya Charitamrita perspective, and then we'll try to see in the form of chart, how we can reconcile all this. Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Hare Krishna.